All right. Good afternoon. My name's Hannah Perkey. I run Evelo team here at Keller Realty, and I have Bob Warner joining us this afternoon. We're going to talk about what's been happening in the real estate industry in the month of June. So we'll just jump right in here. We like to keep it short and sweet and get you guys the facts. So Bob, can you tell us what's been happening in the housing industry this past month?
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, let's just get right to it. We've been doing this for a while now. First up is that median sales price. So we seem to be in this like roughly 1.5 to 3% range is mostly what we've been this year. So we ended June at 325, which was up 1.6% from last year when the median sales price in our area was 320. So that's sort of in line with expectations. Next up is that cumulative days on market. So we ended June at 12. Looks like a bigger leap than I think it really is. That's up 20% over last year, but you're comparing 10 to 12. But what I find most interesting, and I know it's always a little hard to see the charts wherever you might be joining us from, but we've had like the biggest decline in quite a while. So back in like January of this year, we were up above 45. I think it was like 47. And you can just
Mhm.
see that precipitous drop there that's gotten us back down to 12. So always like to point out things that I think are a little different or a little interesting. Next up is
Mhm.
that month supply of inventory. We were basically really flat over last year. I'm sure it's 1.9 something something, which is why we get a 1.5% difference. But let's just call it 1.9 months supply of inventory from 25 to 26. Again, a balanced market is historically been considered about a 4 to 6 month supply of inventory. Now, maybe we might call that a 3 to 4 month supply of inventory. So we're a little bit closer to balanced, but still a little bit less supply than what the market can handle. Next up is that percent of list price received. So again, keep in mind, this is just an average. This actually went up a little bit over last year, which is the first time it's gone up in a few months. So we ended at 98.7. Again, a pretty small jump from where we were last summer at 98.4. And we take a couple different looks at that later on as well. But on average, our listings in our market are selling for 98.7% of list price. And then that active inventory ended June at 69.61, which was up just a little bit less than 12% over last year.
Yeah, we had some interesting stuff, and I think we've been feeling that on our team, that it's very busy right now. But yeah, just seeing where we came from in that kind of January timeframe, it's
Yeah.
a big swing of things. All right, what additional items have you been following to track the shifting market conditions?
Yeah, as things sort of as we came out of the crazy pandemic and the crazy market from 2020 to 2023, we started looking at a few different slides as well. First up is closed sales. Again, we were up about 10% over last year, closing just a little over 3,600 units as compared to 3,300 last year. New listings, again, another number that's up a little over 3% with 4,165 new listings in June. We talked a little bit about, we look at that list to sales price ratio a couple different ways. The other one we like to look at is the percent of homes that have closed above list price. So I think it's important to know, we talk about it a lot. Ultimately, real estate is very hyper local, down to the neighborhood, to the zip code, to the school district, et cetera. So obviously, when we talk averages, we're talking a very broad central Indiana market that encompasses about 16 counties, I think is what it is currently. But if we went really local into some of those areas, this number might be higher. But I always find this one interesting. So one out of every five homes basically is still selling for over list price. So I think it's still relevant to know that. And that's it for that piece.
Okay. All right. And then our most common question that we get as realtors, how are interest rates currently?
Exactly. And it's really interesting because we literally changed from 6.48% when we did this last month to 6.49%. Again, keep in mind, these are just the averages at one
Mhm.
particular week in time. But it is relevant. And again, I know it's a little hard sometimes to see the charts, but I'll just point out here, you can see we have really been really flat going back almost for a year, right? I mean, we dipped down just a tiny bit below 6 for a very short amount of time, but we've been in this like 6.25 to 6.5 range with a little spike that went a little bit above that earlier, but it's been really consistent in that range. And I feel like a broken record each time we do this each month because I feel like we're within zero point zero 0.01 or 0.012 or zero point zero
Mhm.
zero 0.001 is what we've been for the last several months. So we seem to be settling into that area for right now.
Yeah, yeah. And I would say like we aren't hearing as much communication, and we think maybe that's some of the reason we're seeing more movement. We're seeing a lot more first time home buyers. And I think just because some of those people were waiting for it to dip, and we're seeing like, hey, it just is where it is right now and pretty steady. All right, any final thoughts on the state of the market?
Yeah, I'm gonna wait a second to bring up the next slide because I'm gonna intro a little bit here. I think if it's always good, I think sometimes, for those that don't know, we have team meeting every week. We always talk about different things that we're seeing in the market or experiencing in the market. And Hannah, I don't know if you recall, but probably late January, early February, I mentioned a few times that I felt that I was having a much larger number of first-time home buyer
Mhm.
what we would call buyer consultation appointments
Yeah.
than what I had had in recent years. And we probably identified that again in January or February. And it's always good to sort of see those predictive results because I thought this one was interesting. So, at its highest point since 2020, so 6 years, first time home buyers comprise 35% of sales nationwide in June. So, I just, when I'm looking to share something a little bit different, I just found that one pretty interesting because I think that we were seeing that as a team sort of overall based on some of the interactions we were having with new first time home buyers in January or February.
Yeah.
Obviously, some of those people closed quickly, but generally from the first time you meet with someone until they close on a home, if they're not ready to go like that next day, there's generally a little bit of a lag. It was interesting to sort of see that we saw that coming a few months in advance of, well, now we have this national statistic that shows, yes, first time home buyer sales are at their highest percentage of sales since
Mhm.
2020. So I thought that
Yeah.
was pretty significant. And again, like you just mentioned too, along with the interest rate, if you've maybe been sitting on the sidelines thinking there was going to be big changes, those are probably not likely to come. And
Mhm.
that's probably why we've seen some of those folks that maybe did sit on the sidelines for a year or so. Maybe that is why we saw more come into the fold in
Yeah.
2026. And I'm guessing that that number will probably stay in that range for a little bit based on some of the other things we've been seeing and experiencing.
Yeah, and I think historically before 2020, we saw a lot. I mean, I think it was around 30% that it's set at for a long time. So yeah, if you guys are considering buying and you're renting and want to know more about that, we do a little bit different approach to our buyer's consultation when you are a first time home buyer. So we'd love to share some of that information and help you understand what it takes to buy a home because we know it can seem a little intimidating if you haven't done it before, but we have lots of great resources to help you take that investment opportunity in your life. I think that's it. So we appreciate you guys hopping on today. Thanks so much for joining. We hope that's helpful in understanding what's happening here in central Indiana. And we will be back next month to share new and updated stats and some that are similar. We'll see. So we'll look forward to seeing you guys next month. Thanks so much. Bye bye.